I guess Sydney's gonna be
Sydney.
a part of it.
Stop it.
Okay, it is January the 8th, 2024. And this is the inaugural podcast of Take It to the House. And it's not always going to be about sports and certainly not always about football. But today is the day of the College National Championship between Michigan and Washington tonight. Going to be played in Houston at NRG Stadium. And we had the semifinal games last week. I think we're going to try to focus a little bit on college football today. And Alex Deits is here. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm going to probably have Alex as a regular, and he's willing and very capable, and I'm interested in what he has to say about a lot of this. But Alex, let's just start with, I guess, last weekend and leading into tonight. What did you think of the two games, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl last week?
I think it lived up to the hype. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy going into the playoff, but I think at the end of the day, whether you believe in the committee or not, like, we had two great football games, and so I think we were benefactors of that. I thought the Michigan and Alabama game was just, quite honestly, like, emotionally, like, taxing. Like, after that game, the interest at first in the Washington and Texas game, I just didn't have as much up until around the second half, because the Michigan game, there's just so much controversy and high energy, and Saban, Jim Harbaugh, two powerhouses, and so it's really quite interesting, watching, like, Michigan dominate the line of scrimmage in the first half, and then Alabama finding a way just to capitalize off a couple miscues, and now looking forward to tonight. I think Washington has a chance if they can force J.J. McCarthy to beat them. I think Michigan's road to success is Blake Corum in that run game, and if Michigan finds himself where it's a quarterback duel, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah. I want to talk about tonight's game in a second. Just kind of going back to the committee and the decision for the Final Four. I probably made a few people a little upset. I think I got a couple of birds flipped at me with the bird emoji last week, just because I said that my opinion is that Alabama was never a top 4 team.
Right.
And so there's really two levels to this season, and the first level is, what is the criteria for deciding the teams? If you're going to say it's the best 4 teams, to me that doesn't work, and it's disingenuous, because if you're going to say, well, I'm just going to look at the players, I'm just going to look at the teams, and just decide whoever I think are the best 4 teams.
Right.
And if I'm doing that, and I think the majority of anybody who watches college football is doing that, they're not putting Texas in over Georgia.
Right.
Now, it's hard to put Georgia in over Alabama after Alabama just beat Georgia, although I would still put money on Georgia if Alabama played Georgia in a rematch. I think Georgia's a better team. I think Georgia has been a better team all year than Alabama has been. Alabama has struggled all year. It's not just the 10-point loss at home to Texas early in the season. It's beating Texas A&M by 6 when Texas A&M is not good at all this year. Right. It's the last second miracle to beat Auburn. Auburn is a bad team this year. They're a bad team.
Yeah.
Now they handled Ole Miss by 2 scores. Ole Miss is a solid team. Tennessee's a solid team. LSU's a solid team. They handled those 3 games, and those are Alabama's 3 best wins, other than Georgia. But when you beat USF the same way that you beat Ole Miss, that doesn't speak well to how strong your program is. And if you're going to make this argument that Alabama's in because of the eye test, to me doesn't hold water. Now maybe they end up in the Final Four, and I would have a hard time saying, well, Texas goes in over Alabama based on the eye test. But if we're gonna do head to head plus the eye test, then you're sort of trying to do two different things at once.
Right.
Now you could have to say the championship games are more important than the regular season games. So Alabama and Texas have an advantage over Georgia because of that. But then you're looking at Florida State, and I realize they lost their quarterback, but it doesn't make any sense to keep Florida State out when they were still ranked in the top four for
Right.
2 weeks
Right.
without their quarterback. And so if you're going to go best four teams eyeball test, Alabama has a shot, even though I would still not have them in the top four.
Right.
If you're going to go deserving, there's no question Florida State should be in. And if you want to make the argument that without Florida State's quarterback, Alabama's a better team than Florida State, you're probably right. And I'm not going to be able to argue against that. But we don't do that in the NFL. I mean, I know
Right.
a couple years ago, Patrick Mahomes missed an early playoff game.
Right.
Are we going to say, well, let's just take the Chiefs out of it because Mahomes is out?
Right. No, you don't
No,
do that.
I mean it's what you've done all year. It's what the team has done, and there's really not any controversy. And we'll circle back on this later, but there's really not a lot of controversy in the NFL about deserving teams.
Right.
And college football is moving in that direction. The playoff next year will get more toward that. Now, all that having been said, you are exactly right. The two games could not have been better.
Right.
There were two incredibly competitive games. Alabama doesn't believe that anybody should beat them, ever. And so they're going to show up believing that they're going to come out and find a way to win the game. That's the way Saban is. That's the way the program is. And it's the Patriots of college football if you want to look at the past. Now, Alabama wasn't as bad as the Patriots this year, but Alabama was not one of Alabama's better teams. I don't know every single year, but I don't remember the last time Alabama was this not great.
Right.
This is maybe the worst Alabama team Saban has had in at least a handful of years, maybe 10 years. Georgia was not the Georgia team of the last 2 years. So Alabama shows up thinking we're Alabama, up yours. We're gonna win this game, and Michigan has been us against the world all season with their attitude, and they've been waiting for this because Michigan, unlike Alabama, unlike Georgia, unlike anybody really, Michigan is a traditional, meaning decades and decades traditional powerhouse program just like Alabama, but in the last 20 years, Michigan hasn't been anywhere close to Alabama. So Michigan has built to this year for many years. They've gotten to a point where they think this is their year. I think Michigan has been the best team in football all season. And Michigan did what really the great teams do in terms of the physical nature of football. They won the line of scrimmage.
Definitely.
Both sides of the ball. And I think on the offensive side, McCarthy, I don't think was spectacular. You mentioned McCarthy tonight and how that strategy is going to work with Washington's defense. But I think McCarthy did not play well early. And the short passes, and particularly the backs out of the backfield, Alabama did not have an adjustment for that. They were victims of bad matchups, and that's to the credit of Harbaugh and the Michigan offense. They never covered the backs out of the backfield, and even the late touchdown to Wilson was a flanker, not going in motion, but on the right side, basically a back out of the backfield going into the flat, and the linebackers couldn't get across the field. And SEC and Alabama traditionally it's a given. They're going man-to-man in the red zone. And so Michigan did. Clemson caught Alabama on that a few years ago. When
That's right.
Deshaun Watson hit, was it Renfro in the flat.
Right.
So anyway, kudos to Michigan. Yeah, the other game, I'm like you. I didn't pay as close of attention to it. I think Michael Penix is phenomenal.
He was
I
unbelievable.
did watch the Washington-Oregon game. I think that's the first start to finish time I'd watched Washington all year, although I'd seen him in a couple of games with highlights, and I've watched him here and there. Michael Penix has been great all year. He was good in the Sugar Bowl. The thing that just stands out to me, obviously Michigan special teams, lots of mistakes, horrible. I have to believe they're going to fix that. I think Washington, the thing that stands out is the clock management at the end of the game. The fact that Texas had a shot to get back and possibly even win that game at the end was horrible on the part of Washington in terms of their clock management. So all that said and done, it's not about Florida State. I'm not a Florida State fan. I will admit I do enjoy seeing Alabama lose. So I don't want to be.
I think that's like America mostly.
Well, yeah, I guess they're kind of the Cowboys in that way, and that a lot of people don't like them. And the real reason it's hard for me because I've got a cousin that is I think the world of that's a lot older than me, and so when I was little, I loved Bear Bryant and I liked Alabama. My older brother, who's not as old as my older cousin, so after my cousin went to Alabama, my brother ended up going to Auburn. He's Bo Jackson's age. My brother is.
Wow.
So he came in when Bo came in and when Charles Barkley
That must
was
have been
there.
exciting.
Yeah, it was a great time to be an Auburn Tiger, and he's always been an Auburn guy. So I through the 80s and even in the Stallings years of the 90s, I did not particularly dislike Alabama. I remember cheering for Alabama over Miami in the Sugar Bowl when I was in college, and when Alabama won the national championship. And I think really what has caused me to grow to dislike Alabama has been kind of Saban's way of talking, his way of doing interviews is kind of a big turnoff. But anyway, let's pause and then come back to tonight's game, and then we'll talk a little bit more about college football in general. This is Take It to the House. Alex Deits is here. We'll be back in a little bit.